Hello, my friends, my listeners, my viewers of the HTG podcast. Happy to be back with another episode. This is the U.S. Open edition. Yes, we are finally at the 2020 U.S. Open. Feels really nice. Little different that we're not getting this tournament in the summer, but happy that we're getting a tournament at all. Obviously, as you guys probably know, the Open Championship being the one major that was canceled for the 2020 season due to COVID. We will still have the U.S. Open this week and then the Masters to close out the 2020 major schedule. So really excited to talk some winged foot this week. The golf course is supposed to be incredibly difficult. Actually did a bonus episode this week for you guys that haven't checked it out. You absolutely should. I had a special guest, one of my lifelong friends, Wes, does a great job of breaking down winged foot for us. Does a phenomenal job both from an historical perspective as well as what we can expect to see this week following the redesign by Gil Hans a few years back. So if you have not yet checked out that video, you absolutely should. You'll notice that during today's episode, I will only lightly touch on winged foot and the course layout today. That's because I want you guys to go ahead and check out that other video, right? That's where we go ahead and dig deep, Wes and I, into what we're going to see around winged foot, really what sorts of skill sets will succeed, and I'll touch on a lot of the same points that Wes and I made during that video. So if you have not checked it out yet, what the hell are you doing? Go check it out. It's great information. It should only help us build better DraftKings lineups this week. So since it is U.S. Open week, and since I really don't give a shit about the SAFEWAY, even though we did have some great plays at the SAFEWAY, we will only touch briefly on a recap of the SAFEWAY, a few items that I wanted to note, and then we'll end up jumping right into the U.S. Open to save ourselves some time. Obviously, a stacked field for this major and a lot of things to talk about. So let's kick it off with what I'm smoking. So today I am smoking Grape Stomper. The grower is Jolly Farms. It's a sativa dominant hybrid and it's testing at 18.2% THC. So taking it a little bit easier today. We'll keep our head as clear as we can for US Open week for you guys. So I'm going to do my same old lighter trick and get it going. And guys, don't be afraid. Don't be shy to let me know what you guys are smoking. Drop it in the comments. Let me know what you're smoking. Again, always looking for recommendations. It gets kind of difficult, honestly, to pick different strains for each week and making sure that I have a variety to choose from so that I'm not smoking the same thing in front of you guys. So if you can just comment what you're smoking, comment what your favorite thing is to smoke. If you can include the grower, that would be awesome as well. Would really appreciate it because I'm always looking for new things to smoke. So let's go ahead and get sparked up and we're going to get into the SAFEWAY recap really quickly. Okay, so the SAFEWAY Open, 2020 SAFEWAY Open, Stewart Cink gets the win. Pretty surprising there. First win for Cink since he claimed the Open Championship, that I think we all wanted to see Tom Watson win, but it was well deserved by Stewart, as was his win this past week. A stellar final round, 7 under, with his son on the bag. When I saw Stewart Cink won, the first thing that came to mind, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. If you haven't, you should. I forget what event it was, but Cink finishes his round a few years back and removes his hat. And he has literally the craziest head tan, like hat tan, you'll ever see in your fucking life. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. It is actually one of the funniest things I've ever seen in golf. It's mind-numbing how crazy his head tan is. But Cink played phenomenal golf this week, a blast from the past. He really is the headliner from the SAFEWAY Open. It was great to see Stewart return to some of that good form. He had sort of been flashing some form recently, and we had touted him as a SCHWAG bag play in a few events here over the last few weeks. But it's good to see that he finally put it together, even though we weren't on him last week. A player we were on last week, although the player pool was really good last week, one player we did decided to take a stab at was Jordan Spieth. And I don't I don't know really what's going. Is Spieth ever going to make a return to glory? It was another just absolute implosion from him, in position to make the cut. On his 36th hole, he was playing the 9th hole, the par 5. He had teed off on the back 9 to start his Friday round. He carded a double bogey 7 to miss the cut. I don't know what's going on with Spieth. I wouldn't be surprised to see some major changes coming, being with the swing coach changes, or maybe he adds like a short game coach, or maybe he adds like some sort of psychological coach or like course management coach, because man, Spieth seems to be the most volatile player on tour, hole to hole. He has these stretches where he looks like old Jordan Spieth. Then he has these stretches where he looks like an amateur, quite honestly. And it gets really ugly with the driver at times, and he seems to be in his own head. So Spieth's someone that is on my do not roster list at the moment. Missing the cut at the Safeway is a huge red flag, and the fashion in which he missed it makes it even worse. So Spieth is someone that is on the do not play list until he shows something to it. He has to show us something in the way of making it back to Jordan Spieth form. And I'm not here to write him off entirely. We have to remember Spieth is still a young player. He had really accomplished a tremendous amount early in his career, so I think our expectations of him might be a bit too high. And he still has plenty of time to regain some form. Well, I don't think we'll necessarily see the peak Spieth of old again. He's still a very talented player that I expect to at least progress from where we're seeing him now. So just wanted to touch on the miscut from Spieth because that was a surprise to me, and especially the fashion in which he missed the cut was very concerning. So aside from that, let's get into the good things from the Safeway. We had 2 phenomenal SCHWAG bag plays. Both came in very low owned. James Hahn coming in under 1% ownership. Phenomenal play. Wish he could have had a better Sunday. Only shot even par on Sunday. Was in great position there after that Saturday round. But to be able to get a player at under 1% ownership that had a chance to win the event going into Sunday, yeah, those are the types of plays we're looking for. Glad to have been able to pick out James Hahn in that bunch. Another great SCHWAG bag play from last week was Pat Perez. I mentioned Pat Perez, just a better caliber player than where he was priced. So yeah, Pat came through for us as well. It was a great player pool, especially there at the bottom toward the SCHWAG bag. Had a pretty solid week. Most of those that played that I got text messages from, those that follow and view the HTG podcast. So that's what I want to see. Love to see you guys profiting. Love to see you guys sending me text messages and screenshots of your profits. So keep them coming. And we're going to keep them coming this week at the U.S. Open, where we are going to be on an incredibly difficult golf course. I am so excited for this, and you guys should be too. We love to see the pros struggle. This week is going to be quintessential, difficult golf. I don't expect the winning score to get to even par, or really even close to it. And again, make sure you guys check out that episode that I did with Wes, our special guest Wes. Because we touch on a lot of these things. So that episode dropped yesterday on Tuesday. So you guys should absolutely go ahead and check it out. I, again, won't go into a deep dive on the golf course, but once I get this resparked, I will talk a little bit of winged foot, and then we're going to jump right into the skill sets we like and the players we like for this week at the 2020 U.S. Open. So, Winged Foot Golf Club is in Mamaroneck. Say that 3 times fast. Mamaroneck, New York. Plays at a par 70. It's in upstate New York. Plays at a par 70. Plays at 7,469 yards at a par 70. So, adjusted for par, we are on a very long golf course this week. The greens are POA, so we're on POA surfaces. We've seen those a couple times here in the last few weeks. So these players that at least have made it to the Tour Championship, these players that have been playing in these elite fields, should have some familiarity with POA here now that we've been on some POA surfaces a few times over the last few weeks. Gary Woodland, your defending champion. He shot 13 under last year at Pebble. Woodland, unfortunately, has been in absolutely terrible form, so We will not be talking about Gary Woodland past the fact that he's defending his championship. And also, we will see a much different golf course this week. 13 under being the winning score at Pebble. Again, I expect this winning score to be, well over par, at least a couple shots over par. So we're talking about a completely different golf tournament this year. And really quickly, this golf course is going to play very difficult. And while I said it's very long when adjusted for par, the rough is extremely long right now. I mean, stupid long. It's going to be incredibly penal. These players are going to have to find fairways. And as Wes mentioned in the video that I dropped yesterday, these players are going to have to dial in their distances. They're going to have to be pin high, because without being pin high, it's going to lead to a lot of three putts on these multi-tiered greens, as well as if they do miss the green on the wrong level, getting up and down, being able to scramble from there is going to be that much more difficult, having to chip into a different level of the green. So we definitely want guys who are going to be able to find fairways and guys who are going to be able to dial in their iron distances. Even though this golf course is very long, it isn't necessarily going to be a bomber's paradise, or at least we don't expect it to be this week. So with that being said, our golfer prototype, things that we included in our custom model from fantasynational.com, strokes gained approach, fairways gained, strokes gained around the green, proximity to the hole, bogey avoidance, strokes gained putting, three putt avoidance, and that is actually going to close out our statistics for this week. So you'll notice we have a lot of short game metrics in there: three putt avoidance, strokes gained putting, strokes gained around the green. So short game is going to be very important. Par is going to be a good score this week. So if you can scramble, you are going to have success. Even if you can grind out some bogeys, being able to scramble for a bogey and avoiding double bogeys around this golf course, or double bogeys or worse, is going to be very important this week. So we want grinders that have shown the ability to scramble, have flashed a good short game. And we also want to focus on guys that in the long game are hitting fairways and are showing some good proximity to the hole and some good approach numbers. We want guys that really have the distances of their irons dialed in, so they find themselves pin high as often as they can around this course. So with that being laid out, we're about ready to get into our top shelf plays. Let me get a little bit of smoke in here, a little bit of water. And this Grape Stomper tastes very citrusy. I like it a lot. One thing I did do, I used different papers. I think these are bugler papers or something like that. And I don't like them all that much. Feels like they burn a little more harsh. Maybe they're a little thicker. Maybe they're meant for rolling tobacco instead of marijuana, and that's maybe why I'm getting a little bit of a different taste, or different. Also, I can tell like the smoke's a lot heavier coming off of it. So just buyer beware to you guys. Your papers matter. They certainly can, and how your product tastes, as well as how it smokes, right? How it hits the throat, how it hits the lungs. So something to be cautious of. Excuse my reach. Pardon my reach there. I should have kept my water, next to me, which I will do from now on. Okay. We are ready to get into our top shelf plays. Top shelf plays, guys, are those that are priced at $10,000 or more in Draftkings salary. By the way, guys, huge tournament this week on Draftkings, of course, it being a major championship. We're looking at $1 million to first. So that's the goal this week, guys. We're gonna get us across the finish line before 2020 ends. We need someone to either take down one of these things, or at least let's get a top 10, right? Let's get someone paid in the five figures if we can. So pay attention. I think we've got a very good breakdown of winged foot this week, and if we can just get the right combination of these guys in this player pool, I really like our player pool this week. So let's get it started, guys. The first top shelf play, and again, these are $10,000 or more in Draftkings salary, is going to be Jon Rahm. Rombo coming in at $11,000 flat price tag, 24% projected ownership. Isn't exactly what you want to see. It is high projected ownership, but for this week, there's the skill set that we're looking for has been so defined particularly after going through my course breakdown with Wes, that the players I really like, and there are a multitude of reasons I like them. So I'm not going to be as concerned this week about ownership. With that being said, ownership's always important, and there's an ownership that Rom can jump to that I will shy away from him eventually, of course. But at this 24% number, I'm still okay with it. And you guys that are longtime listeners of the show understand that when people get into this ownership range, the game of golf is very difficult, especially when you're playing a difficult course, and you're playing against such premier talent. It's a volatile game, right? So owning anyone at 24%, if they're priced correctly, is something I normally shy away from. But I absolutely love Rom's game around this golf course. As a guy that gains tons of strokes off the tee, you think that Rom really does it just by bombing the ball. Rom actually a surprisingly accurate driver of the golf ball for how far he hits it, and that is going to pay dividends around here. If Rom's able to hit fairways and leave himself shorter yardages into the greens, not to mention he's a stellar player on approach as well, carries a good short game with him. I mean, there's no reason not to love Jon Rahm. I've mentioned to you guys how much of a winner he is, how much win equity he carries into every event he tees it up. I love Rahm this week. I'm not even, you know what, I'll go into the statistics for you guys, but I just touched on them a bit. So he's coming in 4th in the custom model, 2nd in bogey avoidance. So around a golf course where plenty of bogeys are going to be had and par is going to be a good score, you love to see that Rahm is able to avoid those numbers on the scorecard. He's 2nd off the tee over the last 24 measured rounds in this field, and 31st in fairways gained. So yes, he hits the ball far, and that's why his off the tee numbers are so good, but to still also, back that up with being 31st in fairways gained, it boggled my mind a bit. It made my eye pop, and it makes me absolutely love Jon Rahm this week. So Rahm at $11,000 flat, even at the 24% projected ownership, is where I personally prefer to start lineups. I just love Rahm around this track this week. So Jon Rahm, $11,000 flat, 24% projected ownership is the first play of the week in the top shelf. The next top shelf play, and we only have 3 top shelf plays this week, but our second top shelf play is Xander Schauffele, coming in at $10,100 price tag. And Schauffele is a guy who, in these events where you're going to need to grind, I just kind of like him. At his price tag, the model isn't in love with him. The model does like him as well. So Schauffele's coming in at 23rd in the custom model. He's 1st in bogey avoidance. This is something I'm really looking at this week. If the model's showing me that someone's statting out well in bogey avoidance, and also, my eye test for I've seen all these guys play plenty of rounds of golf. If I think about this player being a grinder or someone who's a big event player, if I can couple that with the bogey avoidance stat, I feel like these are the types of players we're going to want this week. Schauffele also 35th in fairways gained, which is plenty fine for me, especially because he comes in 4th off the tee. So in a lot of ways, he's kind of a poor man's Jon Rahm, and he's priced like one, right? So we are getting lower ownership on Schauffele than we're getting on Rahm, which I'd like to see as well. That $900 price savings can go a long way. Or potentially, if you like one of these guys in the mid $6,000 range or the high $6,000 range, which there are a couple guys that we can have some confidence in that range this week, you could potentially start your lineups with Rahm and then go to Schauffele and then start to dip down. That is a possibility if you really like some of these guys in that high $6,000 range, or even, there's a play or two in that mid $6,000 range as well. So starting lineups with Rahm and Schauffele, not impossible. And, I feel like they're very similar. That they carry similar skill sets that should help them succeed around this golf course. So correlating them in lineups seems like a good move to me. And the final top shelf play that I like this week is Collin Morikawa, coming in at $10,000 flat, 15% projected ownership. And if you watch Tuesday's video, this should be absolutely no surprise to you. We talked about Morikawa ad nauseum, I think. Morikawa, when you think guys that are able to find fairways, guys that are able to work the ball in both directions, right to left and left to right. Guys that are able to, hit their irons at consistent distances to continually be pin high, hole after hole after hole. I mean, Morikawa is checking every box. The only concern is on these lightning, multi-tiered, undulated green complexes. Morikawa has shown, that he will three-putt from time to time. He isn't the most comfortable over those, short-ish putts, and he's missed a few in his short career, right, and a few important ones. So while Morikawa, checks pretty much every box, you can say that there's a bit of a red flag with the putter, but, I mean, this guy just won the PGA Championship. There's really no reason why he can't win back-to-back majors. He was Wes's pick to win the event. I love him as well here. So, yeah, Collin Morikawa, $10,000, 15% projected ownership's too low. I don't know if, winning back-to-back majors, incredibly difficult thing to do. Maybe that's shying some people away from the ownership. But for him to be $100 cheaper than Xander Schauffele and less owned, I don't know. It doesn't feel right. So Collin Morikawa, $10,000, 15% projected ownership. Starting Rahm, Morikawa, or Rahm, Schauffele, or even Schauffele, Morikawa. I like the idea of doing that, especially if you're someone that likes one of these lower price plays that I'm going to go over. And I certainly do like some of the guys at the bottom to pair with these guys this week. So that's our top shelf. And we can get into the mid shelf. I'm going to get another drink of water. This time I did put my drink next to me, so I won't have to reach over the camera. Okay, let's see. The mid shelf, that's players priced at $7,500 or more in DraftKings salary. Of course, lower than $10,000 since we just went over the top shelf plays. The first mid-shelf play is Webb Simpson at $9,700, 19.7% projected ownership. Another player that Wes and I talked about, a guy that can also, similarly to Morikawa, work the ball right to left, left to right, similarly to a guy like Tiger Woods, who actually I will not be touting as a play this week. I thought I would be, but there were just too many red flags I saw with Tiger to be able to pull the trigger this week. But yeah, we mentioned Webb alongside Tiger and Morikawa as a guy that can work the ball in both directions. He's going to find fairways. We know what the iron game's like when it's on form, and it seems to be on form at the moment. So his proximity to the hole should be good. He should be on the right levels. And even if he's not, he carries a great short game and can get extremely hot with the putter to bail him out if all else fails. So Webb Simpson, $9,700. This guy, well deserving of that price tag. Had a phenomenal season. Has really strung together a few phenomenal seasons now, and is deservedly a top 10 player in the world. So Webb Simpson at that $9,700 price tag is exactly what we're looking for around this golf course. So far, these guys that I've mentioned up at the top, they're grinders. They're guys that can find fairways, and they're guys that carry a ton of win equity. So I think we have to look to grab at least one of these guys up top, if not two. I'm normally a proponent of that sort of balanced build in major championship fields and very strong fields because you get really, really good players in that mid-tier pricing range. But this week, I do like jumping up to the top of that pricing range because I like these guys quite a bit. And because there are some very, very viable options, at the lower pricing tier, as I mentioned. The next mid-shelf play is Daniel Berger, $9,200 price tag, 17.6% projected ownership. I think both the price tag and the projected ownership are fair. Berger, as I've mentioned many, many times on the podcast, has been absolutely phenomenal, even since before we took the break for COVID. And then on the restart, he's been even better. So, yeah, Berger's form is unquestioned. He does everything well, which should help him succeed around this course. To do everything well, to have the short game, to have the off the tee game, to have the approach game, he can lean on any part of his game to have success around here. Also, on a golf course where par is a good score, I trust Daniel Berger to make some pars. He is one of over the last, month or so, couple months, when we've been rostering him here at the HTG pod, he is so stellar at making those, miraculous par saves. I mean, the guy must pour in as many 8 to 10 footers for par as anyone else on tour. It seems like, whenever he gets himself in trouble, he can find his way out of it. So love Berger this week. 17.6% projected ownership is a tad high given the ownership we're seeing on players around him. So if you are someone that's really looking at ownership this week, then maybe Berger isn't your guy. But like I mentioned, I'm going to the guys that have the skill set, that specific defined skill set that we're looking for this week, and I'm just rostering them, and I'm not really concerned about the ownership. So Berger will be one of those players at $9,200 and 17.6% projected ownership. A lukewarm play for me and someone that Wes liked, Adam Scott at $8,700, projected for 13.3% ownership. And, Scott's a great ball striker, and his around the green and putting games have both been, pretty on point as of late. Scott's just a guy who, with that putter, man, it can get so bad so fast. And with so many viable options around him, I don't know if I want to rely on his putter. Also a guy who doesn't have a great major championship record over his long career. So something else to worry about. But as far as the model goes, and Wes's points were good, Scott checks out, right? So he's coming in 27th in the custom model, 16th in bogey avoidance. You love to see. He is coming in at 65th on approach, which is a bit concerning, probably below his baseline if I had to guess. Adam Scott, a better approach player than that over the course of his career. The surprising thing for me, coming in 14th in 3-putt avoidance and 18th around the green, meaning we're going to have to trust Adam Scott to be stellar on the greens and around the greens. And I don't know if I can do that. And if we can't trust him to be stellar there, then he has to make some serious progress in his approach game and his proximity to the hole. So if you trust what Adam Scott's been doing around the green, then if he just incrementally gains with his ball striking, he's going to be live this week. I was very surprised to see the short game numbers. But I'm a little bit weary. I'm not sure where I'm going to land on Scott as far as how much I roster him. But just wanted to point him out as a play and someone that I'm glad Wes pointed out because upon a little bit of a deeper dig, it's someone that's a viable play this week. So if you're an Adam Scott fan, 13.3% projected ownership's nothing to shy you away. Go ahead and roster him up. I would prefer to play the next guy, Patrick Reed, at $8,500, 17.5% projected ownership. Yes, the projected ownership's higher, but Reed's exactly what I want around here. I don't even care about the stats, honestly. I don't care how he stats out. I'll give you guys that in a second in case you do. But as I mentioned with Reed numerous times, the guy's a winner. And in an event is another guy that Wes and I spoke about. In an event where, par is going to be a great score. Your psyche is going to be tested. The mental game is going to be tested. It's going to be a grinder's event. And Patrick Reed is the definition of a grinder. So P. Reed, I love him this week. I normally like rostering him in that 10% ownership range, but I think people understand that this is the type of event that Reed is probably, licking his chops coming into, knowing that it's going to be an event where you have to rely heavily on the mental game, being able to grind out pars, grind out bogeys, just put a score together. And Patrick Reed is so good at doing that, especially on difficult golf courses. 17.5% projected ownership. I'm okay with that. I'm still okay with that, especially priced all the way down here in the mid 8,000 range. A guy I think carries so much win equity. Yeah, I love stuffing Reed into lineups. I told you guys I would give you how he stats out, so let's go over that. He's 20th in the custom model. He's coming in 5th in bogey avoidance. Love to see that. 10th in proximity. Love to see that. Only 70th on approach, but again, Patrick Reed's a volatile player. He runs hot and cold. I'm really not concerned how he stats out on approach, quite frankly. He's just one of those enigmas statistically. And, 36th around the green, but I think we all know that Patrick Reed, when push comes to shove, if he's in contention, he can lean on that short game. He's a phenomenal short game player under pressure. I love P. Reed. I will own him in plenty of rosters this week, and I feel very confident in him to have a good performance this week, and I really like his chances to win the event as well. So if you can get a good outright number at your sports book on Patrick Reed, check out DK Sportsbook if you're in a state where you're allowed to use them. I do like an outright on Patrick Reed if you can get him at a decent number, a number even in the 30s, anywhere around that 30 number, 30 to 1. I'd really like that. So Patrick Reed at $8,500, 17.5% projected ownership, one of my favorite plays of the week. I'm a little lukewarm, but the ownership projection had me a little surprised on Justin Rose at $8,400, 7.6% projected ownership. And look, this is a pretty cheap price for a guy like Justin Rose with the pedigree he has, an Olympic gold medalist, just an incredibly pedigreed golfer. $8,400, pretty cheap, and 7.6% projected ownership. That's low. And Rose has shown the ability to show up quite literally out of nowhere. Like, his game looks like it is in terrible form sometimes. And, he takes a week off and all of a sudden he's right back on the top of the world. So Rose is a guy that can appear out of nowhere. He's statting out 26th in the custom model. He's 30th on approach, 52nd in bogey avoidance, we didn't love to see, but 18th off the tee and 40th in fairways gained. So good enough off the tee and being able to, good enough in the fairways gained metric with being able to hit the ball further. It's going to bode well. And when you couple that with his proximity numbers, Rose looks like he could be a very solid play this week. The issue, of course, with Justin Rose is that putter and around the green. 119th in putting, 100th around the green. 119th in three-putt avoidance and 100th around the green. That's not going to do it around Winged Foot. So we have to hope Rose brings the putter. But, as I mentioned, he's a guy that has been oddly volatile lately. Will show, a poor stretch of golf, take a little break, and then, reappear as one of the top players in the world, one of the elite players on tour. So Justin Rose, $8,400 is too cheap, 7.6% projected ownership is too low, but know that he is a very risky play, a play coming with a lot of risk, but also coming with a lot of upside. The next play that I like is Ricky Fowler at $8,300. Yeah, Wes, I went ahead and did it. 5.1% projected ownership. I went ahead and I took a deeper dive into Ricky, and this is a huge buyer beware situation here, guys. Let's be perfectly honest here. Without my conversation with Wes, I don't think I'd be touting him, but let's go ahead and do it. 31st in the custom model, and let's see where that's coming from. He's 71st on approach. 71st on approach for Ricky Fowler. That seems, his baseline number should be significantly better than that. It's the off the tee that usually concerns me with Fowler when things are going poorly. And off the tee, he's 56th, but he's 30th in fairways gained. And that surprised me. And in digging in, Ricky's been finding the fairway lately. He's finding form with that that driver here, and he's not hitting it as far as he used to. And I wonder if this is a sort of intentional thing from Fowler. Maybe he's reforming who he is as a player, maybe realizing that he's not going to be one of the longer players on tour, and finding fairways might be a way for him to gain a competitive advantage over his fellow PGA Tour competitors. And this week it certainly would be. Ricky, a guy who also, he has added a cut off the tee to his game. So a guy who can work the ball right to left and left to right off the tee, can also work the ball both ways with the irons, even though he does prefer that right to left ball flight. Fowler has the tools, and we know when the putter's hot and the around the green game's on form that he is one of the world's best short game players. The major championship struggles, of course, are well documented, but we don't need him to win at this price tag. And at this ownership, 5.1%, he gives us a huge amount of leverage on the field if we do roster him. Am I in love with the play? Of course not. But I can see his path. I can see how Fowler gets there. And I can even see his path to a victory. He has the upside. He has that path. if incrementally he gets better toward his baseline on approach, if he can keep hitting the amount of fairways he's been hitting, and he's shown that he can hit over his last 24 measured rounds, and if, his around the green game stays where it is and his putter, becomes vintage Ricky Fowler, he's going to be toward the top of the leaderboard. So a lot of things do need to fall in place for him, but it can happen. And it was surprising to see that Ricky's been gaining fairways against the field, 30th again in fairways gained over the last 24 measured rounds in this field. And this is a strong field, so if Fowler can keep finding the fairway, I don't see any reason why he can't churn out pars and grind around this golf course and be there come Sunday. So Ricky Fowler, again, buyer beware, not in love with him, but I can tout him this week. $8,300, 5.1% projected ownership. The next play that I like is Scotty Scheffler at $8,200, 2.1% projected ownership. And the price tags for Fowler and Scheffler, a bit pricey, right? I think that's probably why we're getting the ownership, discount that we're getting. But 2.1% projected ownership for Scheffler, yeah, I'll pay the extra, maybe he should have been priced at $7,800 or so, $7,700 in that Matthew Wolff range. I'll pay the extra $500 for this ownership discount. 2.1% for a guy who carries a tremendous amount of upside, a guy who we just saw shoot a 59 on tour not too long ago, a young player who, yes, is going to be volatile, but carries as much talent as really any of these young players, maybe aside from Morikawa. Give me all the Scheffler this week, absolutely. Scheffler coming in second in the custom model. I'll just give his numbers across the board because they're so good aside from putting. Putting, he's 72nd, so, neutral to the field. But again, putting is a stat that is more volatile than the ball striking statistics and the around the green statistics. So if he's going to be average anywhere, putting is probably where we want to see him be average. He's 23rd around the green, 16th in proximity, 15th in three-putt avoidance, 11th in strokes gained off the tee, 32nd in fairways gained, 7th in bogey avoidance, 3rd in approach over the last 24 measured rounds in this field. And Scheffler was a player that was playing in all of those stacked fields. So, these numbers are against the elite players as it is. I don't understand how he's coming in at 2.1% projected ownership. Scheffler, a guy that I think you have to get in at least one of your lineups, and then you instantly have tons of leverage against the field. He carries a tremendous amount of upside. And with already seeing Colin Morikawa win one of these major championships, that being the PGA, where there are no fans around, maybe there's a bit of reduced pressure on these young players and on these players like Fowler who, have been feeling the pressure, who would normally feel the pressure on Major Championship Sunday and really over the Major Championship week in general. Maybe without fans and with a quiet venue, these guys don't feel as much pressure. So Scotty Scheffler would definitely be one of those guys in the boat that, if he can come out feeling no pressure and just come out firing, he's got all the upside in the world. Really similar upside to what we saw Morikawa do at the PGA Championship. And if you told me Scotty Scheffler was your 2020 U.S. Open champion, I really wouldn't bat an eye. I'd be, incredibly proud of the guy, right? Because I want to see him succeed. And it would be a bit surprising, but it wouldn't shock me. He has that type of talent. So let's roster Scheffler. Let's trust in the talent. $8,200 price tag is high, I'll admit that, but 2.1% projected ownership for a guy with his ceiling. Let's fire away on Scotty Scheffler this week, guys. The next play that I like is Terrell Hatton at $8,100. He's projected at 19.8% ownership. And yeah, it's surprising that Hatton's priced cheaper than Scheffler, but the ownership's reflecting that at 19.8%. Hatton, a guy, when it comes to proximity, when it comes to approach play, when it comes to being pinned high, he's almost like a poor man's Morikawa in a sense, poor man's Tiger. When he's dialed in, he is seriously dialed. Let's go over Hatton's where he's rating out in the model. So Hatton coming in 30th in the custom model, 31st on approach, and 9th in proximity. That's why you want to roster him. If he's able to find fairways this week, which he's struggled a bit lately, 59th in this field over the last 24 measured rounds and fairways gained, and 69th off the tee. So you're going to need Hatton to have a good week with the driver, but if he does, he's going to be finding himself on the right levels on these greens, and at that point in time, he's going to be someone that you will want to roster. So you're trusting that Hatton gets it done with the driver, which, it may or may not happen, but if he does, you can trust that the rest of his game is in position to pay off this price tag, even at the 19.8% projected ownership. Again, this week, I'm a little less concerned with ownership. Let's just go ahead and take the guys that have that unique skill set that we need around this extremely difficult golf course. The next mid-shelf play is Matthew Fitzpatrick at $8,000 flat, 18.5% projected ownership. And I just like rostering Fitzpatrick at these events where par is a good score, where you're going to need to find fairways, where, just fairway green 2-putt is a recipe for success. Incrementally gaining strokes against the field. I feel like that's what Fitzpatrick does well. He game plans golf courses well. We liked him back at the PGA for the same reasons, and for whatever reason, the driver had just fell apart at the PGA on that Thursday round. So let's hope that doesn't happen to us at this event. But Fitzpatrick's coming in the model 17th, 9th in bogey avoidance, 7th in fairways gained, 31st off the tee. So, still will have enough distance to be able to compete with this golf course. The concern for Fitzpatrick would be around the green, where he comes in 102nd, but he's second in this field with the putter over the last 24 measured rounds. So even if he isn't spectacular around the green, lately he's been able to trust the putter to bail him out. So I just, in these events where par is going to be a good score, Matthew Fitzpatrick usually finds himself competing. So Fitzpatrick's a guy that, even though I would prefer to roster Scheffler at his projected ownership, I do like Fitzpatrick at this $8,000 flat price tag and 18.5% projected ownership. I also like Paul Casey at $7,900, 14.5% projected ownership. And, Casey is a guy that has been really hit or miss for us this year. But, the model loves him. He's coming in 14th in the custom model, 23rd on approach, 3rd in bogey avoidance, 38th in fairways gained, 14th off the tee. So he's adding some distance to those fairways he's hitting, 9th in 3-putt avoidance. The concern, similar to Fitzpatrick, is around the green, where Casey's 125th. And Casey doesn't have the putter to bail him out like Fitzpatrick does. Casey coming in 81st in strokes gained putting over the last 24 measured rounds in this field. So that is the concern, the short game. But we do like to see the proximity numbers from Casey and the approach numbers from Casey. So he should find himself on the right levels of these greens, which should make it a little bit easier for him to scramble. So there is a red flag, and for that reason, maybe I don't like Casey as much as I like a guy like Scheffler, or even as much as I like a guy like Hatton. But with that being said, the skill set's so good elsewhere that he's a guy you can certainly look to, especially at a $7,900 price tag, and that 14.5% projected ownership isn't too much to be concerned about or to be worried about. I'm touting guys that are up in the 25% range, like John Rahm. And Casey is a world-class talent. It's not like he's one of these bottom barrel players on the PGA Tour that, doesn't deserve mid-teens ownership. So I do like Paul Casey this week as well. A similar play to Paul Casey is Harris English, same price tag, $7,900, similar ownership, 15% flat for Harris English. And Harris English has just been striping the ball lately. He's, been one of the best ball strikers in the elite fields he's been playing in. So let's go ahead and ride that ball striking form. He's coming in the custom model at 16th, 10th in bogey avoidance, 3rd around the green, 15th with the putter. So his short game checks out as well. He's 36th on approach. The proximity numbers aren't great. 74th in proximity, so average in this field. So the putter's been really converting a lot of those opportunities. Going to need to see a bit of a better week with the proximity numbers out of Harris English. Because if he finds himself on the wrong levels of these greens, he's going to bring a lot of 3-putts into play. He's really going to struggle to convert birdies, that's for sure. So that would be the concern with English, is he hasn't been the best with the proximity, but everything else certainly checks out. And for a $7,900 price tag, for a guy who's been playing as well as English has been, I think that 15% projected ownership is correct. The next mid-shelf play is Mr. Matthew Wolff at $7,700. Wolff's projected at 13.8% ownership, and I was surprised that the model spit Wolff out. And I initially was like, I don't know. I don't know if I really like Wolff around this setup. But then I thought, Wolff showed well at the PGA, right? A course where I also thought he might struggle around. And Wolff is surprisingly finding some fairways, 42nd in this field in fairways gained. To couple that with 6th off the tee. Coming in 12th in the custom model, 15th on approach was surprising to me as well, as was 11th in bogey avoidance. So Wolff, just a better all-around player than I think I was giving him credit for. His game's really accelerating at a much more rapid pace maybe than I was giving him credit for. And maybe he's going to catch the likes of a Morikawa here shortly. I think I consider Wolff to be of that Scheffler sort of tier right now. And we're getting a $500 discount to Scheffler, as I mentioned earlier. The red flags for Wolff being the around the green and the three-putt avoidance, 109th and 104th respectively in this field over the last 24 measured rounds. But the proximity numbers check out, the approach numbers check out, all of the ball striking numbers check out. So if we can just get Wolff to find himself on the right levels of these greens, if he can game plan around this golf course successfully, then I really like his chances this week, because if he's able to find fairways with the distance he possesses, it's almost going to be like he's playing a different golf course than everybody else. It's going to be such an advantage. So Matthew Wolff, $7,700, 13.8% projected ownership. If he can find fairways this week, he is going to succeed. The next play I absolutely love. It's Kevin Kisner at $7,600, 5.8% projected ownership for Kisner. Kisner is exactly the type of guy that I've been talking about. Like a poor man's Patrick Reed, I would say, just a guy who's going to grind. When par's a good score, I want Kisner on my roster. Kisner, man, just unbelievable. He's coming in at 5.8% projected ownership. The model likes him as well. He's a guy who, coming into my custom model, I thought no matter where Kisner rates out, I'm going to take a look at him and see if I can make a case for him, because just at an event like this, I feel like he brings that mental advantage over the field. But he's also rating out 9th in the custom model, 14th on approach, 29th in bogey avoidance, 25th in fairways gained, 18th in three-putt avoidance, 12th in proximity. He is first in this field over the last 24 measured rounds with the putter, which you love to see, riding hot with the putter coming into this event. 120th around the green is his major red flag. He's also 87th off the tee, but we know Kevin Kisner does not hit the ball far. But he's finding fairways, as I mentioned. So as long as he's finding fairways, I'm okay with the fact that he's going to be hitting a bit of longer shots into these greens. And with the proximity numbers being the way they have, the around the green should be a bit easier for him, similar to Hatton. And being the number one putter over the last 24 measured rounds is just a massive cherry on top. So Kevin Kisner, this ownership's criminally low. For those lineups I mentioned where you're starting up with two of those top tier players up top, you can just jump right down to Kisner and then sort of fill out with these SCHWAG bag plays at the low 7,000, high 6,000 range if you're someone that wants to play a volatile lineup like that. I think we have the ability to build like that because these SCHWAG bag plays in this strong of a field, they carry some upside. They really do. And they carry some made cut equity as well. So if you want to build like that, I'm absolutely all for it. But the last mid-shelf play is Kevin Kisner at $7,600, 5.8% projected ownership. Roster him in bunches, guys. Roster him in bunches. I'm going to respark before I get into the SCHWAG bag, get a little drink of water, and then we can go over everyone's favorite segment where we talk about the sub 7,500 price players. Unfortunately, no real low-owned bombs for you this week because, look, guys, we're on an incredibly difficult test of golf. We need guys we can trust this week. Didn't dip below anyone in the $6,400 price tag, and even getting that low is a bit of a risk, right? So no bombs this week, but still some SCHWAG bag plays that we can use as some salary savers so that we can take some guys that we like up top. All right. The first swag bag play, and man, he's been a staple of the show here recently because his ball striking has been phenomenal, although, over his last event there, wasn't so great at the Safeway. It's Siwoo Kim, $7,200 price tag, 7.1% projected ownership. It wasn't great for Siwoo at the Safeway, but I don't know necessarily. I mean, at that event, maybe he just came in a little unfocused. I expect him to really come in trying to grind at this U.S. Open. Siwoo, the concern for me is that he is a risk taker, and I don't think this is a week to take risks. I think this is a week to bury your head and grind out pars, accept the bogey where you have to accept it. But the way he's been striking the ball, man, it's hard not to roster him at such a cheap price tag, $7,200. Coming in 10th in the custom model, 5th on approach, 26th in bogey avoidance, 19th around the green is surprising for Siwoo. Normally an awful putter. He's coming in 46th in strokes gained putting, but we know that can turn on him. So, yes, Siwoo is a risky play this week. The fact that the ball striking looks like it's starting to turn in the negative direction is very concerning. But prior to the Safeway, he was one of the hottest ball strikers on tour. And he really hasn't been killing himself with the putter. And as a matter of fact, he's been gaining in the short game. So if he can return to the ball striking form we saw prior to the Safeway and continue the short game as it's been, yeah, Siwoo's absolutely going to pay off this price tag. And I don't understand. People just seem to hate Siwoo because this price tag's too cheap, and I'm surprised he's only down at 7.1%. Maybe it's an effect of how people are constructing their rosters and the salary ranges they're dipping into, because we do see pretty low ownership in this salary range overall. But yeah, it's just interesting that Siwoo just can't seem to gain any steam amongst the public. But we will take that and leverage against it, and hopefully we'll pay off from it. So Siwoo Kim, $7,200, 7.1% projected ownership is the first swag bag play. The next swag bag play, and definitely take it with a grain of salt. We haven't seen him since the miscut at the PGA Championship. It's Henrik Stenson at $7,200, 6.4% projected ownership, and Stenson just hasn't played much golf at all since the restart. He played the PGA, he missed the cut. Stenson's a guy who I want to see if he's going to be able to hit that 3-wood around this golf course. It's very long, this course, especially adjusted for par. It's a par 70. But if Stenson can trust his long irons, and if he can poke that 3-wood out there long enough that he can take it off of a majority of these tees, he can work that club both ways, right to left and left to right off the tee, and he finds a tremendous amount of fairways with it, which will be an enormous advantage for him. So, man, people used to love rostering Stenson for this exact reason. Apparently, since we haven't seen much of him, people are off of him, which I understand. 6.4% projected ownership, though, is low enough for me that I'll take a shot. Maybe Stenson's been grinding. Maybe he's, really, really been in the lab, and maybe he comes in form. And if we get in form Henrik Stenson with the ability to just pepper fairways with that 3-wood, man, it's going to be such a tremendous advantage he will have over the field. Stenson is actually statting out well as well, but keep in mind that a lot of this data dates back into 2019, so long time ago. He's coming in 11th in the custom model, 6th on approach, 23rd in bogey avoidance, 11th in fairways gained, 113th off the tee. So that's a lot of that, him taking that 3-wood off the tee. He'll gain a lot of fairways, but he'll leave himself long shots in. And that has contributed to a proximity number at 84 in this field. 84th in this field, obviously not what you want to see. So Stenson's certainly going to have to find some form in order to be a play that pays off, but the advantage that hitting every fairway will afford him is so great that down at this price tag, I think he's worth a shot down at this price tag and this ownership. So if you're not someone that can stomach the red flags that I just mentioned, then I understand, but just know that if Stenson comes in form and is just peppering fairways with that 3-wood, on Sunday, he's going to be in one of those final pairings, and you're just going to wonder why you didn't roster the guy that continues to be hitting out of the center of the fairway. The next swag bag play that I like is Zach Johnson at $7,100, 6.4% projected ownership. And yeah, this shouldn't surprise you at this point with the style of golfer that I've been looking at this week and that I've touted this week. ZJ's a guy we can trust to find fairways, right? And he's not going to make bogeys. He's 44th in this field in fairways gained, which not stellar, but down at this price tag, we'll certainly take it. And if he has a good week with the driver, as he's had recently in events, we can expect him to perform even above that metric. He's 15th overall in the custom model, 21st on approach. He's coming in at 22nd in 3-putt avoidance and 21st with the putter. So the putter, of course, with Zach Johnson, as usual, has been hot lately. The around the green game, we can trust. The proximity numbers aren't bad, 45th in this field, so should at least gain against the field in finding himself pin high and being able to chip on the right level of these greens. And yeah, Zach Johnson, also a guy who, when par's a good score, we want some Zach Johnson. This is a guy that can grind his way around a golf course and will have a mental advantage over the field, like I mentioned for a guy like Patrick Reed. So yeah, just these grinder types who are going to incrementally gain over the field hole after hole after hole just by having a good game plan and hitting, the intelligent, correct shot. I like those guys a lot this week. I like them a lot. And the quintessential example of these guys is probably the next play, but Zach Johnson is one of those guys as well. So at $7,100, 6.4% projected ownership, I like Zach Johnson a lot this week. I love Chez Reavie at $6,900, 15.2% projected ownership. So, the public is on board as well, but I love Chez Reavie this week. Chez, the guy who, when you think, I mentioned in an earlier podcast, I'm not sure which episode it was, may have been for the Safeway, that Chez Reavie's swing coach was being interviewed on the Subpar podcast. And he mentioned that, he compared Chez to Floyd Mayweather, which is hilarious. But it's that he doesn't have knockout power, right? He's not gonna really just dominate short stretches of holes. He's a guy who's going to follow a game plan and execute flawlessly through technique and gain incrementally hole after hole after hole after hole until those incremental gains over 72 holes have him in position at the end. And that is exactly what I want around Winged Foot this week with a golf course that I expect to play very difficult, to have a winning score over par. I need someone that just understands the value of incrementally gaining shot after shot after shot over the field and doesn't have to play hero ball. I love Chez Reavie. The model loves Chez Reavie. He's coming in first in the custom model, 4th on approach, 17th in bogey avoidance, 1st in fairways gained, 67th off the tee, so he's not the longest player off the tee, 10th in 3-putt avoidance, 6th in proximity, 42nd around the green, and 73rd in putting. So there's even upside for more, a better performance. If Reavie can find better form with the putter, which, the guy can get hot with the putter, right? He can turn in, a top 10 putting performance in this field. He's capable of that. So I love Chez Reavie this week. He's a big reason why I like starting the builds up top. Not only the win equity that the guys up top have, but just the confidence I have in a big performance from Reavie this week. I think par being a good score, needing to find fairways, stay out of this rough, which is going to be extremely penal, put yourself on the right levels of the green, and just incrementally gain hole after hole. Scream Chez Reavie to me. $6,900 is cheap for a player that fits the mold that we're looking for. So 15.2% projected ownership, is an easy pill to swallow for me. The next swag bag player I like is Corey Connors. Same price tag as Reavie, so I certainly won't be getting to as much Connors. $6,900. 5.2% projected ownership, though, so we're getting a 1 to 3 ownership discount for Connors to Reavie, which is interesting because Corey Connors, as we know, is a great ball striker and a terrible putter. So if Corey Connors can, put himself on the right levels of these greens and avoid the 3-putts, he can have some success this week. I prefer Reavie for sure, especially because I think there are a lot of big numbers out there for Corey Connors. Reavie more of a grinder, more of a guy who I mentioned will gain incrementally hole after hole, but if Connors can string together 4 great rounds, and he has won on the PGA Tour before, so he's shown that he has the ability to do that. Maybe not in a major championship field, but he's shown he has the ability to do that. Maybe Corey Connors is live come Sunday, but I greatly prefer Reavie to him. I think even at the 3-1 ownership discount, I still prefer Reavie to Connors. But if you're someone that is looking at ownership this week, and you have a pretty chalky lineup to start up top, and you come down here and you just want a bit of an ownership discount, look to Corey Connors at that $6,900 price tag, 5.2% projected ownership. And the final swag bag play is Brian Harman. I mentioned someone at that $6,400 price tag, 10.4% projected ownership. So a little surprising that Harman was able to get all the way up to this ownership number, double digits at the $6,400 price tag. But he provides us with so much salary savings and is almost like a poor man's lefty version of Chez. In the sense that when par's a good score, I want Brian Harman. He's going to incrementally gain, hole after hole after hole. He understands the value of grinding out a par, grinding out a bogey, not taking the others. As far as the custom model is concerned, let's give you guys some stats. It's coming in 28th. The big concern for Harman, 112th on approach. But he's 13th in bogey avoidance, 27th in fairways gained, 58th off the tee. Of course, he's not one of the longer hitters on tour, one of the shorter hitters actually. 2nd in 3-putt avoidance, 27th in proximity, 1st around the green. To get a player leading in this field in any statistic, especially one as important as around the green, at such a cheap price tag is significant. So he's also polishing that off with 26th putting in this field. So, Harman looking absolutely spectacular at this price tag. If you need price savings, he is the guy. There's no one else I would look to, below Corey Connors and Chez Reavie. There's no one I would look to other than Brian Harman. And we have to hope that, the approach numbers start to get a little bit better. Brian Harman, a better player on approach at his baseline than he's been showing lately at that 112th ranking. So, yeah. Harman for salary savings. Harman and Reavie are going to be your salary saving options. That allows you to go up top and get the guys that I talked about earlier. It's going to be a crazy week, guys. This golf course is going to play incredibly difficult. Again, go back and watch the video that I did with Wes as we talk about just how difficult this course is going to play. But it's going to be incredible golf to watch. And hopefully it's going to be incredible DraftKings to watch as well as we see our lineups climb to the top. And hopefully one of you is telling me about taking down the $1 million top prize. I appreciate you guys always sticking with me. Appreciate you if you would, follow the podcast on Instagram, like our posts, send us comments as well. Let us know what you think, how we can improve. If you can also download the podcasts and subscribe to the podcasts on YouTube as well as Spotify, Apple Music, that would be greatly appreciated. Really appreciate everything, guys. Love you guys. We'll talk to you after the U.S. Open. Big week. Peace.